Good morning. I'm Barry Lieben, and I'm a member of your NSA board. Over the years, the NSA has enjoyed many wonderful speakers. Today, we really take it up a notch. Senator Joseph Biden is one of the most respected voices in the Senate. It would take most of this morning's general session for me to list all the accomplishments of the senior citizen from Delaware. So let me highlight just a few. Senator Biden is the top Democrat on both the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Subcommittee on Crime. A strong leader on anti-crime and drug policy, Senator Biden has been instrumental in crafting virtually every major piece of crime legislation over the last decade. I'm nervous because I've never introduced anyone so important. I've introduced a lot of people, but no one so important. Senator Biden is and I'm not even a Democrat. Senator Biden is the Democratic Party's chief spokesman on national security and foreign policy issue. Senator Biden's influence is also widely felt in areas of environment, violence against women, and making college tuition more affordable for all of us. Senator Biden has faithfully served the state of Delaware and this country for the last 32 years. It is my great honor to welcome him to our convention. Ladies and gentlemen, the senior senator of the great state of Delaware, Senator Joseph Biden.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm the overdressed Joe Biden. Someone should have told me. By the way, I suspect your grandfather is rolling over his grave. You saying you're not a Democrat. My grandfather Finnegan, my grandfather's name was Ambrose Finnegan, and he was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And in Scranton, Pennsylvania, to be Irish and Catholic meant you were a Democrat, and was required. I'll never forget my grandfather saying, remember two things, Joey, about us Irish. One is when one Irishman sticks his head above the crowd, there should be another one there to lop it off. He said the second thing is when an Irishman makes a little bit of money, moves to the suburbs, he thinks he's a Republican. Irish guys like you must have moved to the suburbs. It's an honor to be here. Let me ask any of the young people in this room, how many of the young people in this room stutter? Raise your hand. No, I want to know the young people first. For women, that's all of you. For the men, it's those under 30. You know, and how many of you are professional clinicians? And how many clinicians ever stutter? Well, something we all know, all of us who stutter and still stutter. This stuttering is insidious in a way like nothing else, in my view. It causes to the listener, they're not a parent, it's not like they can look at us and say, I understand why he can't run fast. He has a withered leg or a gimp. I understand why he can't jump high. He's very short. I understand why. But they look at us. They look at us and they assign their own motivations, their own judgments as to why we stutter. And I find it to be frustrating, especially when I used to stutter a great deal. I found it difficult to cope with, but also difficult to explain. And the insidious nature of it is the rationales other people apply to why we stutter We're slow. We don't have confidence. We don't have any strength. We are just not very bright. After a while, when you're 5 and 6 and 10 and 15 and 18 and 20, unless you really have a whole hell of a lot of support, unless you have a whole hell of a lot of people around you that love you and know how smart, how noble, know your aspirations, know who you are. The insidious nature of this, at least with my experience, is that if you don't watch it, you begin to believe it. You begin to believe it. That's what I find so insidious about what many of us in this room are still dealing with, had to deal with, or have someone we love dealing with it. And the most dangerous part, and the message I try to bring to those of you who are young and still have all these aspirations about what you want to be and who you are and how you're defined, is that's going to be your biggest fight right now. Is making sure you understand that none of those reasons ascribed by others, even well-meaning people, to why you stutter are relevant, are real. And, you know, it's that old expression, God protect me from my friends. I can still feel that feeling in my stomach when I try to pour out my heart and someone would finish my sentence for me. I can still feel that feeling when I was trying to say something that I thought was important, and I'd be told, slow down, slow down, as if I didn't know, as if I didn't know, as if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't be doing it already. And you know, for a lot of young people, young men and women, as you clinicians have observed and you stutterers know, we end up compensating in a whole lot of different ways when we stutter. And you say, well, Biden, how can you extrapolate from your experience, which you haven't even told us about, to this generalized notion? Because a lot of people in my family stutter. I watched an uncle who used it as a brilliant guy, truly a brilliant guy, an intellectual. He used it as his crutch as to why he didn't succeed to the extent that he should have. I've never been this personal with an audience in my 32 years in the United States Senate. I've avoided coming to speak to you. I've been asked many years. An old teacher of mine, Father Timothy Riley, used to head this organization years ago. And to tell you the truth, when I first started my job as a United States Senator, although all those who knew me and know me knew I stuttered, I was reluctant to be nationally identified with it because there were still people who were assigning rationales for why we stuttered in the first place that were much more insidious. It was about why someone would stutter. Truth is, you clinicians don't know a hell of a lot about this. No, please don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's not because you don't care a great deal. It's not because you don't do a great deal of good. But it's ironic that something that has plagued mankind from the beginning, that in a sense we know so little about. That's what I mean. I had a couple craniotomies because I had 2 cranial aneurysms, and they literally cut the top of your head off, take it and go down below your brain and fix it, I was told the reason I had a second one, they couldn't find a brain the first time, but and I'll never forget the second operation, which was 3 months later, which was less life-threatening, being wheeled down, and the same docs were taking care of me. They were wonderful. God bless them. And the anesthesiologist, a young doctor, his name was Hart, a colonel in the United States Army, and he was trying to make me feel better. He said, Senator, why neurosurgeons have the biggest egos of anyone in medicine? And the neurosurgeon was standing there, walking down with me. They were laughing. I said, no, I don't. And I'm counting the ceiling tiles, I said, no, I don't. He said, who else would go into the brain knowing as little as they know with as much confidence as they have? It really was reassuring. Really reassuring. Folks, there's about 3 million other Americans who deal with this issue. Fully 1% of the population, 20% of the children, at some times in our lives, in their lives, stutter. Which raises and the clinicians will tell you more about this than I can tell you about what it raises as to why and how and who and so on. I remember, I have 4 children. I lost one, but I have 4 children. And I remember one of them, when they were 2 years old, started stuttering. I could feel the blood drain from my face. I think, oh my God. Because I remember the hurt. I remember the feeling. Turned out it was literally episodic until about 4 years old and went away. But why Joe Biden until he was in college? Why my uncle, Edward Finnegan, until he died at age 73? Why? What's the difference? What changed? What's the cause? Well, I know, like all of you know, that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. I know that 1,000 eyes you feel like are focusing on you when you're trying very hard to say what you express. I was asked, and I've actually tried, I've spoken before kings and queens and princes and foreign ministers and presidents. I've spoken to audiences as large as 25,000 people. I'm on television a lot. And I was once asked, not too long ago, actually it was about 8 years ago, what was the most difficult speech you ever made in my life? It was really easy. I said graduation day. I was the class president. The most difficult speech I ever made in my life was standing before my parents, my classmates. I didn't go to a big school, only 60 in my graduating class. So there was 500, 800 people, grandparents, all extended family. And all I had to say as class president, today is our graduation, and we welcome and thank our parents for all they've done for us, our teachers for what they provided for us, and our classmates for sticking with one another. I present the class of 1961. You know what I focused on the most? The word welcome. I mean, I focused on it for 3 days. That's not a speech, what I just gave. It's not a speech. But the word welcome paralyzed me. And you know, I wonder sometimes, because I ask myself, how did I get from there to now, you know, all you have to do is decide not to run for president, and you're wonderful. I am a wonderful guy now. If you read in the paper, I am an expert on foreign policy. I'm the leading voice. I am one of the nation's orators. How the hell did that happen? I know part of it happened because I didn't run. Had I run, it would have been that bum from Delaware. You know. But how did it happen? How did it happen? Well, it happened, I think, for a lot of reasons that were almost beyond my control. It happened because I have a mother who, from the time I was a kid, would say, "From everything bad, Joey, something good will come if you just looked for it." You know, Disraeli said there's no education like adversity. I look back on my stuttering, and I've talked to some of the people that are those famous people who stuttered. Obviously, the ones who were dead before I was around I didn't talk to, but Winston Churchill, James Earl Jones, John Updike, Jack Welch, Jimmy Stewart, Robert Merrill, Bill Walton, Mel Tillis, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Anthony Quinn, Lester Hayes, and the woman I love almost as much as my wife, Annie Glenn. How did they make the break? And there's only a few of the incredible number of people who have become well known for their views, thoughts, and ability to entertain, who stuttered. And like many of you, I've talked with many of them about what do you think happened? How do you think you made it? And I think there are two things that happen, and I am not, make it clear to the young people in this room, I am not a professional. I am not a clinician. Although when I was at Syracuse University, I worked at the speech therapy department there, working with stutterers. They would assign. And the kid I got assigned is an incredibly successful businessman for a major corporation. How would you like to be a stutterer with the name? Bruce Balmuth from Ballston Spa, New York. Swear to God, that's his name. Brilliant young man who started off literally not being able to say his name. You can't say Bruce Balmuth from Ballston Spa very easily if you're a severe stuttering problem. He's now a senior executive in one of the Fortune 10 companies in America. He does not speak fluently, but he speaks like this so that you can understand everything he says, and he is able to get through not only a paragraph, but lead meetings and do it very well. And he could not say his name when he was a freshman at Syracuse University, a scholarship student, because he academically tested and did so well. You know, every one of the people who stuttered and has overcome it have a powerful story to tell about. Not how stuttering affected them alone, but how it changed their lives. And the thing I want to talk a little bit to the younger people in this room about is that there's an old Jewish proverb. You wouldn't know this as an Irishman, but I'll tell you, there's an old Jewish proverb. And it says, I ask not for a lighter burden. I ask for broader shoulders. And sometimes the burden that is thrust upon us, whether we ask for broader shoulders or not, develops broader shoulders. And you'll find that, particularly if you don't give up, don't give in, and you have enough support to continue to push yourself, regardless of the degree of success you achieve relative to how well you can enunciate and speak, you'll find that it develops pieces of you that you didn't know existed. You'll find that it gives you strength in places that most people can't go. You'll find that it gives you, if you're honest with yourself, maybe what is most lacking in this country today, an overwhelming sense of empathy for not just those who stutter, for all those who have a problem. There's two ways in which you can respond, unrelated to whether or not you conquer your demon of stuttering. It will do one of two things to you. It'll make you more empathetic, more understanding, and a better person. Or, as William Butler Yeats said, too long a suffering makes a stone of the heart. It will make you angry. And that is the ultimate defeat, if you allow this to make you angry. Now look, you're looking at a guy who, as those few of you who know anything about me and read about me, I get angry occasionally. And when I was a young man, I spent a fair amount of time learning how to physically handle myself, because you could make fun of me, but you better be prepared to fight me. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. That's how I reacted. That's how I reacted. I'll tell you a little story. One day, I thought, well, maybe I have an 87-year-old mother, God love her. I tell my kids, excuse me for the religious reference, but tell my kids and my grandchildren that God created no more perfect woman other than the Blessed Mother than my mother. And my wife goes, oh, God, stop it. And my mom was a sweet, gentle, 87-year-old lady. If you saw her, I promise you you'd love her. And I thought my mom taught us all the time about respect for authority. And you just respect authority, and if someone is older, you get up and give them a seat. If someone is in your home, even though they're acting rudely, you're a guest in your home, and that's the ethic. Well, one day when I was in 7th grade, I was, probably shouldn't tell you this, I was in 7th grade at a Catholic grade school. And any of you ever attended a Catholic grade school, you know there's some wonderful things about it, and there's some, like all schools, not so wonderful things. But unless you're an idiot, you knew the day when you were going to have to read, because everything is done by alphabet and height in Catholic grade schools. And it's yester, noster. And the nuns taught, that word I just pronounced was sister. And so I was Biden, and I was short, and I was in the first row and about the 5th seat. And I can still name the kids who were shorter than me. You knew when you had reading, remember in those days, and still now in many grade schools, the teacher teaches all subjects. You don't change classrooms, you're in the same class. And we were reading about Sir Walter Raleigh. And I had learned, for me at least, and my parents got me professional help as well. I mean, it wasn't like we just played with this. And one of the things that worked for me a little bit was getting the cadence so that when I read, I was able to get this going, okay? Now, came my turn to read, and you read a paragraph. And I looked down at my paragraph. I knew what it was going to be. And I'm going to say something self-serving and also self-indicting. I am known as being a relatively good extemporaneous speaker. If I am,